welcome to I Caught It on Audio. This is Water Cooler Chat episode 13, The Rings of Power, season 1, episodes 1 and 2.
Hello and welcome back to another 64 Tacos podcast. Today we're going to be doing a water cooler chat about the new Lord of the Rings TV show, The Rings of Power, on Amazon. So I think we're just going to jump right into it. I've got Dan and I here, and this is set, roughly 3,000 or so years before the Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit take place, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's in the Second Age. I'm pretty sure about that. So yeah, a long time before any of the events in the movies that we've seen.
Very, very few of the characters are going to be available, which is kind of good. But we do have already in these first two episodes, we've met Galadriel and Elrond, and then we've met ancestors of some of the dwarves, and there's also a mysterious character who shows up in a shooting star or a comet or something.
Right.
And I don't think they explicitly say it, but my theory is that's Gandalf.
That's a theory. It doesn't. I don't know what they're doing with that if that's Gandalf, because Gandalf in the lore has been alive since the very near beginning. He's one of the Valar, I think.
Yeah.
So why he would appear unknowing, sort of he seems out of it. He looks like he could be Gandalf because of the gray beard, and he's large, human sized, big folk as they say.
Yes,
yeah. So like, it makes sense if you don't look at where Gandalf came from. Maybe they're doing something interesting with, like, he's being sent there, and that was the manner of his sending. I don't know. That's one thing where I can't figure out how it could be Gandalf, but I'm not sure who else they would be popping up. I'm a little rusty on I haven't read the Silmarillion for a long time.
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and look to see who else it could be, but it feels like it might be a problem if it's Gandalf as far as the lore is concerned. As far as the story is concerned, if you get rid of, Quenta Silmarillion, then sure, that might be kind of fun, but I'm just not sure how that's going to work yet. So we'll have to see.
So yeah, the story starts off with the explanation of the first time Sauron appeared, if I'm not mistaken, and then kind of the elves came from their land to Middle Earth of the evil, and then we follow Galadriel as she seeks out Sauron in an attempt to completely eliminate him. And this goes on for centuries. She's unable to definitively destroy Sauron, though there's been no signs of him either.
Yep, she's continuing to pursue, even though everyone else is sort of saying, well, it's been so long, he's probably gone, it's time to call it good and stop trying. She's convinced that she has to keep trying, perhaps spurred by the death of her brother. Was it Finrod? Yep. It was a real character from Silmarillion and other writings and stuff. Okay. They're setting it up sort of as she's the only one that still believes that he's out there and dangerous. And the only one that at least partially believes her is maybe Elrond, in as much as he says that, he's willing to look out and pursue him if it pops up. And then we get to, for her story, then we go to the king saying it's over. It's time for the company that pursued for all these centuries or however long it was to go to the Grey Havens, back across the Sundering Sea to where the elves originated, where we first meet Galadriel and her brother. And she grudgingly accepts, hops in a boat with all the other elves who are going back, and right at the gates, so to speak, of the Grey Havens, she decides, nah, screw it, I'm grabbing my grabbing my dagger and hopping in the water. That's where she currently is. She swam for a bit, came across some other shipwrecked, who were damaged by this sea creature. I think they call it the worm.
Mm-hmm.
Their boat was damaged, and then they're attacked again, and it's just her and some dude. And then they sort of, it looks like they land on some sort of either fortress or seawall at the very end. And that's where her story ends during the first 2 episodes. But we also get to follow a couple other threads. So like there's the elf who is has an outpost near in the south,
near the human settlement.
Yep, when the human in the Southlands, or I'm not exactly sure what they called it, but in the Southlands at the human settlement, who's apparently in love with the healing woman there, or at least from somewhat of a distance. And at that, right as we meet him and her and the rest of the very grubby, I mean, she's not grubby, but everybody else is very grubby.
Yeah, the humans are very primitive at this point, except the one that we're following, the one that we're supposed to admire.
The pretty one is very clean.
Yes.
And everybody else is just dirty and wearing aprons and boxer shorts, apparently.
Yeah.
Which is a little strange. The elves are told, as you know, as was happening with Galadriel's story, that, you know, we're calling it good, so we don't have to have any elves out in any human outposts. And what they were actually doing was not protecting the humans, but watching them to find out whether they were perhaps still supporting Morgoth, who is the big bad. He's the leader. He's the guy that Sauron served. He's the original. He's the devil, basically, in the myth, the creation myth. He says, you know, I want to do my own thing, and then is banished from the Valar by God, effectively, and then Sauron serves him. And they, during these wars on Middle Earth, the continent of Middle Earth, apparently a lot of these humans, their ancestors chose to serve Morgoth, so they're being watched. And there's a little bit of a lot of sort of distrust and dislike between the elves and the humans there. And they you know, this was done pretty well, I think. I actually, to be honest, my least favorite of the 3 stories that we're following is Galadriel's.
Really?
Yeah. It's not that it's bad. I haven't been able to sort of, some of the actions and tone and motivations of Galadriel don't really feel, I don't know if it, like, her getting all the way, like her deciding to go on the boat all the way to the Grey Havens and then jump off in the middle of the ocean, thousands of leagues away from anything, you know,
right.
In a dress, you know, and just be like, I'd rather drown, like, just, you know, die of exposure than, you know, it's like, if you felt this strongly, why did you, I don't know. It's not bad. I just, sometimes I felt like she's, I don't know. And again, we meet her thousands of years later at the end of the Third Age in the Lord of the Rings, and she's much more sort of calm and measured. And maybe this is a relative youth of an elf, you know, she's in her younger days and is wilder.
Yeah, but also she's in the Lord of the Rings, she has this intense passion about her too.
Yeah.
When she talks about the power of the rings and all that, like, it's, and I think that that is being played out here with and yes, it certainly is last minute dramatic, made for storytelling.
Yeah.
We're gonna have this be, you know, a big ordeal. I think the Galadriel character is very interesting, and maybe it is the worst of the main lines, but maybe that also might be a testament to the quality that we're dealing with already.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say it's bad. I don't dislike it. It just though that's the only notes where I felt where I was like, you're gonna have to. I need to see more. You have to convince me yet. This is a little. It doesn't feel quite right. But I guess what I would say about the other stories is they felt. They felt. I just sort of like instinctively adapted or like it felt right to me. I guess is the best way to say it.
Yeah. What did you think of the dwarves?
I think the dwarves were done quite well. We briefly talked about this before I had watched it, how you felt like they were more well-rounded. And
Elrond goes to the to
Khazad-dûm.
Yeah, Khazad-dûm, and with the intent of employing the dwarves to help with the construction of a great forge, if I'm not mistaken, for Celebrimbor.
Yeah, Celebrimbor is the great elven maker of things, smith, etc. And so he wants to build a massive forge, and Elrond suggests his friend Durin, who is, I believe, the son of the king under the mountain.
Yes.
Right. So they go there, and there's I actually thought this was pretty good. It was kind of funny the way Durin was pretty reticent, but I think it did a great job of pointing out the fact that elves sometimes kind of float above the world and forget that the shorter lived people, to them 20 years is, I don't remember how. Yeah, I don't remember how long dwarves live. If they're long, I think they're longer lived.
Yeah, I think it's
much like hobbits.
Hundreds of years.
Maybe longer than
hobbits. Yeah, I think it's hundreds of years,
but not thousands.
No.
And so, when he missed 20 years and his marriage and the birth of his two children, Durin's I'm speaking of, Durin was pissed. And so I think that was kind of a nice thing. It was a little bit of fun conflict and an interesting way to meet the characters, and there was some good back and forth. Yeah. I have to say, I'm impressed by the quality of the production. The writing's pretty damn good. The acting's pretty damn good. The visuals and the CG and the set design are just amazing. The music's phenomenal, great. Yeah. It looks as good, if not better, than the 6 Lord of the Rings movies and Hobbit movies. That fits in. It doesn't look janky. It looks great. It's just a high quality production. The tone, Galadriel tone was. I'm not saying it won't work for me, but I'm a little bit dubious, like I said. But I love the way the dwarf and with the Elrond and Durin's. I felt like that looks great. Khazad-dûm looked awesome with actual living creatures in it, and
there's some nice shots of it where I watched a video with side by side. They had some side by sides of that because that's where they go. That's where the Fellowship goes through, and they meet the Balrog. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, 20 years later.
Yeah,
one of the most famous movies ever.
Right. And they showed the two scenes next to each other, and it's really cool what they did with it.
Oh, that's good. I heard they had they've taken the visual tone and stuff, and they went to New Zealand for I think much of the filming, and it looks. I don't know. It fits in with the movies. It's not a stretch. I was a little leery of the whole exercise because I have not seen Amazon do too many things super well. I've read the Wheel of Time books, and I watched the first season of Wheel of Time, and let's just say that the Lord of the Rings did a much better job. The Rings of Power here has done a much better job so far.
Yeah, I remember you suggesting the Wheel of Time, when it first came out, because you had read the books, you hadn't seen the series yet.
Yeah.
So I started the first episode and got like halfway through, and I'm like, man, I hope this isn't what Dan was hoping for, because it's really not that great.
Yeah, it isn't. And like I watched the whole season on that. We won't get too distracted with this, but it's not all bad. But there's some. I think it's worth watching, kind of worth watching, in the hopes that it gets better. Okay. if you don't know the Wheel of Time stories, it was tough. A tough swallow, the choices they made throughout that season. Now, they was all filmed during COVID. One of their lead actors had to leave, who was a key character. So they couldn't, like, they had to, like, you know, cut and paste and make some random shit up for the last couple episodes, you know, because I think he left because he didn't want to get vaccinated or something. I don't know. So everything was against them, but they definitely, it was not great. However,
Amazon's doing a real good job with this one so far.
And the things that Wheel of Time missed on, obviously the plot is, you know, it's an invented plot, so they can't really miss on plot as much as Wheel of Time adaptation did. But they got the Wheel of Time was a little chintzy looking and under budgeted at times. Like sometimes you're like, oh, I can see the lack of budget there. Whereas this, you never once suspected that there were limitations at all on what they wanted to spend.
When Bezos says we're gonna spend $200 million just to get the rights, you better hope they put some production behind it.
I think they spent enough. I think it was like something like $250 to just get the okay from the Tolkien estate to do it. Yeah. And then it was another like $250 for the first season or something like that.
Yeah.
So what we're dealing with is like $30 million episodes, you know?
Right.
And you're like, and that doesn't always translate to things looking right, but I feel like they made good choices. I'm really enjoying, you know, I'm interested in the human with the elf dude. By the way, I love his breastplate. The elf breastplates.
All of their armor is amazing. All the
super cool.
The elven gear is just, and the dwarven stuff is phenomenal too.
The dwarves actually, I like the look of the dwarves better in this than in either of the two previous trilogies. I feel they've done a good job making them not look goofy, but still, you know, look smaller. And this is a total like random small doesn't really matter note, but I like how Durin's wife has just a hint of beard. On her face. It's like an interesting compromise from the old
beards.
Yeah, it's the beards, you know. So they gave her just a little bit, beard, but she still looks, you know,
feminine.
Yeah, so I thought that was kind of well done. They were willing to go at least part of the way there. I guess full beards would have been maybe more true. I don't remember how all the details of that. You don't get elven women or dwarven women in the books really, I think, at all. No. So we don't really get to meet any.
Don't get many women at all, but
no, many at all. But I was really enjoying the Harfoot section as well.
Yes, the Harfoot was a great tribute to the hobbits.
The pre-hobbits.
Yeah.
But they managed to get the tone of sort of whimsy, but like they aren't quite like settled Shire hobbits.
No, they're migratory right now.
They're travelers, and they are, and this is great because they hide from all the big folk. Their instinct is to hide, and we know that almost nobody knows much about hobbits because they keep to themselves, and they're small, and they're cloistered. And that totally fits in.
They're more of a woodland creature, like a fairy or an elf in our culture would be. Like nobody knows whether they really exist. I mean, obviously we know that elves really do exist in our world, but
well, of course.
But you only catch a glimpse of them out of this corner of your eye, and then when you look, they're gone, which is neat. It'll be interesting to see how they evolve. Like if the series takes them to the Shire, or how that all works out. Or
I'm not sure exactly when they settle. They become more settled agrarian type society rather than being sort of traveling sort of foragers, which is what they seem to be now. I think it all makes sense. Like it's a thing where a lot of times people in the Third Age, even in the Third Age with the hobbits, like people who know them say, "Oh no, they'd look like children to you," like because people don't know who they are, or even the it's when you think about the rings of power themselves, 9 rings for the humans, 3 rings for the elves, 7 rings for the dwarves. Where are the rings for the hobbits? They aren't there
Right.
because the Dark One doesn't even pay attention or care or think they're worthy of
Mhm.
anything. And it turns out that was his undoing, his underestimating and dismissing this small little group of
Yeah.
seemingly weak and powerless creatures. So I think that fits in really well. I really enjoy this the actors, the actresses who play the 2 younger hobbits, who are the ones who find
Nori and
what's her
Poppy?
friend's name? Yeah, I think so. But yeah, the main one's definitely Nori, and she's the one that's kind of driving, and she has a little more urge to go see the world than is normal among the Harfoots.
Right.
But yeah, she finds the man on the meteor, um, and she's trying to figure out what he's saying, what he needs, and he's having trouble, communicating anything. He clearly is magical, which they did really cool visuals with the
Yes.
forest coming down on top of them, and I just really well done. So I'm quite impressed with all that. Also, a neat thing is that way they chose to deal with accents. All the
Yeah.
the Harfoots seem to be of the Irish
Right.
type. The dwarves are Scottish.
Mhm.
At least so far, the elves are sort of like upper crust English,
Mhm.
and then the humans are not quite Cockney, but sort of a one of the sort of more middle class English accents.
Yeah.
And it helps make the races feel different and separated. And I think that was a good choice. And actually, I kind of like the choices they made. When you think of Scottish, dwarves kind of make sense. And
Mhm.
not that I'm the Scottish. All our Scottish listeners, please
Yes.
send your hate mail to to stemshow at 64tacos.com. But
that is an actual email address if you're wondering.
oh yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it feels like it fits the tone of their societies and our personal preconceptions. Like the Irish, it feels like there's a closer connection to fairies and elves and stuff like that. And of course the elves are sort of like haughty, a little more haughty upper crust, and
Mhm.
the humans are just kind of working class, accents. And I think that was a smart move. And it also gives you a little sort of another way to separate everybody else out and keep everybody straight. But yeah,
Yeah.
other than being a little lukewarm on the Galadriel storyline, I have no complaints. I think it's been really, really good.
Yeah. So we talked about this a little bit last night, but there's one glaring difference between this installation of Middle Earth and the original movies, and that is we have people of color playing the roles, and I'm sure like we talked about last night, there are probably people who hate it because it's not true to what Tolkien wrote because everybody was white in Tolkien's world.
Although I should point out that Tolkien described Harfoots as being browner of skin. So even though not everybody is brown of skin in the series that we're watching, great casting with Lenny Henry as being the sort of like leader. I've always liked him, and he does all the Harfoots, like all the acting in the Harfoots is I know it's maybe not the most showy role, but like they really nail that sort of like whimsy and sort of fun loving, while at the same time being very careful of the outside world. And Lenny Henry does a great job as the sort of like, head, decision maker guy with the book with all the information.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he's great. And I think the use of the different ethnicities within the different races, it legitimizes this installation of Tolkien's world in our time, because if they were blind to the fact that, well, first of all, we have significant female characters, and now we've got significant non-white characters. It just creates a world where everybody, there's representation for everyone, and I think that's important. And then also they don't hit you over the head with it, which is always my problem with a lot of the attempts to do this. They're just there, it's a person of a different ethnicity in this group, and that there's no question about it. There's no acknowledgement of it. It's just, that's the way it is, and that's the way it should be. And I think that's the right approach for a modern take on Tolkien's world.
Yep. And to be fair, there are, if you look closely, you can find a couple references, like the Harfoots being browner of skin. I think there are drafts where Tolkien mentioned that that elves, or there were at least some elves, were darker skinned in drafts, even if it didn't necessarily make it. Of course, he never had a final draft of the Silmarillion that was put out by his son Christopher, and helped by Guy Gabriel Kay, another very good author. Back when that actually came out, long after his death, he wanted to finish it, but just apparently 80 some years wasn't enough to tell the story he wanted to tell. And it is a very epic story, so I can't blame him. But there's some hints that, and he doesn't spend a lot of time describing, biology, skin tones, things like that. I mean, the lack of female characters is, well, that's a pretty obvious one. And, it's not good, but it's certainly, par for the course at the time. And you can defend it somewhat by saying, well, it was war, and especially at the time, war was the domain of men, and combat still mostly is, not completely, of course. But so, you can kind of half defend it, but why are you getting all upset trying to defend, everyone has to be white and male,
right.
I don't, that's a tough sell. Like you said, you don't want to get it banged over your head. Like, hey, look what we're doing here. You just want to go ahead and do it. So Lenny Henry does such a great job in that role that I remember thinking, oh yeah, okay. You haven't seen a black hobbit. I mean, he's not a hobbit before, but so you kind of maybe take note initially, but he does such a good job with the character. You forget about it pretty much right away. You're like, oh yeah. That guy's nailing it. And not because he's black or he's not black or whatever, but because he's just doing a great job. Same with the elf among the humans who loves the woman.
Yeah,
he's mixed race, but he has such a striking elven look about him.
Exactly.
And he really nails the sort of reticence and sort of otherworldliness compared to the humans that you don't, for an instant, oh, this, I imagine this character, this made up character, as being white. It's like, I don't want to spend time worrying about that. That's dumb.
Yep. I know it.
Anyhow, I think we've been going for a while here, so
yeah, no, we're approaching half an hour, so
yeah, let's wrap it up. But so far so good. A couple of things I'd love to see the Galadriel story really really catch me more, and I'm hoping that will happen as we go on. I'm still open to that, although it's like I said, it's I feel like it's the least of engaging, or at least true feeling, so to speak, which is a weird thing, but to me, of the stories. But I'm pleasantly surprised so far. I think it's very well done, and I think they're doing a great job. So
absolutely, far. I completely agree, and I'm looking forward to the next episode to see where this goes. We're going to try and continue this series on a weekly basis, so look for our next episode in about a week. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you later.
I caught it on audio.